Greetings, agents, and welcome to your podcast orientation for Sandbox and Chill, an interview podcast that will speak to our out-of-town branch managers for the Triangle.
Listening will cause you to lose your mind and spiral into madness as the edges of reality fold upon themselves.
Well, that was odd. That was supposed to be Inside Thoughts. Today, we will talk about all things triangle, isosceles, equilateral, and scaling, while discussing the agency's most recent Kickstarter and acquisition of funds to spread the agency into your homes.
Do you feel the weight of reality pressing down on your chest, holding you as the shadows of chaos engulf your vision? I am coming for you. We will be in your homes shortly.
That's not what it says. Okay, back on track. So, buckle up and get your ear holes ready for this interview as we join the directors of the home branch of the Triangle Agency.
Watching will set me free.
I forget exactly who showed me your Kickstarter, but it was before you reached the first stretch goals. And I love the intro video. It got me hooked. Like right away, because I love corporate horror. Like everything that you list in your influences of like X-Files, there's like Delta Green, Control, all the fun stuff. And then listening to multiple interviews that you both have been in and either talking about like immersive game spaces and just like the game jam that you started and researching that and then seeing how like, oh, you're actually going to pick people from the game jam to like the winners. If I'm correct, right? The winners, like their little module is part of the
no,
Okay.
That's not part of it.
Okay.
The ones that are in the game jam that are also now in the campaign are ones that we worked on.
Okay.
That we were part of the crafting process for. The thing I guess you're referring to in our design document, we do mention sort of like what a couple other developers have done, that like we're always welcome to hear if people want to work on Triangle Agency things, if we're able to help. But no, the prize for the jam is going to be a complete set, I believe, from the campaign.
That's still awesome.
And it'll be picked. It won't be picked based on like us judging who did the best one. It'll be 3 people picked at random.
Oh, that's excellent.
From people that submitted.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's so hard to read everything. 1, just a hurdle, and then 2, go through and like critique. Like, well, this one is slightly better than this other one.
Yeah, and we're really excited for fans to be and like players to be sharing stuff with each other. But there's some stuff right now that since we're still finishing the game, we like don't even want to read, Right. Like
yeah.
We don't even want to actually literally read it in detail right now. So a lot of it is like a thank you for people starting that community and putting the energy into making that happen. But it's not, I'm not getting at least to enjoy all of it yet. Hopefully
Right.
soon.
It's a treat. We're saving it for later.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Since everyone's in now and cameras are working and mics look to be sounding pretty good, do you want to introduce yourselves and say where people can find you, and then I can start with my icebreaker questions.
Sure. Yeah. My name is Caleb Zane Hewitt. I am lead designer on Triangle Agency, co-founder of Haunted Table with Sean here. I am also a children's book author. I'm a professional game master. And you can find me online at CZaneH most places. Zane is my middle name, and then my first initial and my last initial on either side of that. That's going to be the main way to find me. It's probably Twitter. I also do a lot of tweeting from the Haunted Table account, which I think is just at Haunted Table. So you can also find us there if you're more interested in the games rather than my opinions of Digimon.
And I'm Sean Ireland. I am a co-founder of Haunted Table with Caleb here, and a designer on Triangle Agency. I can be found online, chilling in the Haunted Table Discord. Come hang out with us. And I'm also on Twitter, however grudgingly, at Sean Iceland, because Sean Ireland was emphatically taken.
Yeah, I've been scoping out the Discord and I see how active you are in there and replying to people, and then also, the Twitter haunted table account and replying to people and also liking whenever I'm like, oh yeah, no, here, check this out. We're gonna get to 1 million because I want the immersive game space.
No, I'm a criminal. I'm a criminal searcher right now for Triangle Agency. Anytime anybody says anything, I will find it.
I mean, this is the perfect time when with like how much attention it's already gotten to not like look at it and be like, okay, I know there's so much, people are talking about it. You're getting interviews. There's a Forbes article. There's other articles. People have invited you to guest DM like the Somewhere Ohio
Yeah, it's
podcast.
been wild.
Yeah. But before we get into the wild part of it, my icebreakers are: what are your favorite supernatural TV shows?
Oh,
Like
yes,
top
yes.
top one. Top one, not 5, not 3. Your single most favorite supernatural TV show.
Oh my gosh, having to pick my favorite one. Period. Okay. So my answer is going to be kind of based on recency bias, and it's also maybe not even an answer to the question.
Okay.
But I really want to say Severance right now because it was so good and I was so into it recently. It is not exactly a supernatural show; it's a sci-fi show for sure. But it is such a definite influence on the way I thought about this game while we were making it. I say that, but then I guess to be honest, I didn't watch it until we had already finished the Delta test. I think.
Yeah, until at least a year in.
Yeah.
because we finished the Delta test, and then while people were responding to it, Severance was coming up so often that I decided to watch it and was like, yes, I have clearly handed this to myself back in time a year ago. But so yeah, I think I'm gonna say Severance right now.
Yeah, and at the risk of pandering, I think the first thing that came to mind was Gravity Falls.
Yeah.
I just love a Gravity Falls.
Yeah, Gravity Falls. I mean, I like that show because it's like set in Oregon, I'm in Oregon, and it's very similar to my username. And it's actually based off of like the there's a lot of things here, like the mystery house, the mystery hole, obviously Sasquatch, and some other stuff. Yeah, there's a whole house that basically, because none of it's level, it gets that like fun house effect as soon as you walk in.
Now
This is a real place in Oregon?
Yeah.
You have to know that my reaction was not to Mystery House.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mystery Hole. Yeah, we had for a
See,
long
I'm double clicking on Mystery Hole.
Yeah, we had this place just like outside Portland where it was a hole in the ground that you could go down, and then there was like a door at the end of this mini tunnel. And Portland already has lore behind underground tunnels because when it was founding, it was a port town, hence Portland. And those tunnels were used to move freight in and off of ships, or people on and off of ships with or without consent.
I see. So the mystery hole was like a smuggling.
Possibly.
Trafficking.
Yeah.
Oh, we don't know for sure.
Yeah, we don't know for sure. The working theory is just that someone dug a hole and titled it Mystery Hole, because the guy who ran that for a while also he's a lot like the Grunkle from
Sure.
where he makes
Has a lot of grifts.
Yeah, he does a lot of grift stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
The grift uncle. That's what it stood for.
That's what it says for.
Yeah.
Grift Uncle Stan.
Severance and both those are excellent, because Severance definitely has that like corporate horror, like you could easily slip into like the back rooms, liminal space, and then what is reality.
Yeah, Severance in particular, just a really, really great example of like everything I hope to be able to do in fiction. Just like a complete an interest in like a really clear goal, but not letting the genre limitations like get in the way of reaching that goal. A like a like seamless transition between the like comedy and the horror and the commentary in a way that I find so gorgeous. I joke all the time about how like if you were to sit and read the script,
Mhm.
it would read to you just like a comedy because of how every single scene is written, and then because of the way that they so beautifully handle the like music and the color grading and the set design and the actors like leaning so sincerely and genuinely into their performances,
Mhm.
by the end of it you're like, oh, I'm so tense, but if I were to just isolate the words, this would be absolutely just like a straight ahead comedy. And I love that. I think it's such a brilliant show.
Cause yeah,
And I
that
think the
yeah.
real prestige there is that it's Ben Stiller
Yes,
who
exactly.
made that work.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Ben.
Yeah. Um, how? So you talked about, you briefly mentioned that like you had started the Delta version a year before watching Severance, or so. You can better elucidate me on when you actually started. But how long did you plan this project before actually starting like a Kickstarter?
Yeah. So
Oh,
so it's almost exactly 2 years of time, but I wouldn't say that we spent all of that time like really hammering out the game, like constantly working on it. We've told this story a couple times now, but it started about 2 years before, where we were just like looking for an excuse for something to do every week. We were playing games together sometimes. Um, and we had talked about a couple different ideas of like games we might be interested in making, or like concepts that we were interested in exploring. And then a series of events that actually started, I think I've also told this a couple times, but started
Hmm.
with Gita Jackson tweeting this like random tweet that was like, where are all the games that let me play something like Control? And I was like, well, I know a lot of things that are close to that, but not really that. And I like was like, well, the funny thing is when you say that, there's like so many different pieces of that you might try to aim for.
Hmm.
And so as I was looking at stuff, I was like, well, we have paranormal investigation. There are all these games that do like a very serious approach toward the sort of SCP style
Hmm.
now, and like horror style. Um, and I have always had a hard time not approaching stuff with like a very like kind of comedy angle, no matter what. Um, and same with Sean for sure.
yes, it
Yeah.
is a burden I carry every day.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I very soon, shortly after seeing that tweet, like maybe that same day, I made the logo because I was like thinking about what I thought was funny, and then through the process of thinking about all the different things in that genre, I was like, wow, it's very funny that they all have triangles and they all feature these like ominous non-specific organizations. So then the name Triangle Agency came very quickly from that,
Hmm.
sort of as a joke. I drew up a logo because I was looking for things to practice in design software on. So I made our first version of the logo, which has changed very slightly since then. It's pretty much the same. And then made a couple of initial tweets that were basically just like tone setting things, where I was like guessing at like, here's what the game would be like who would want to play this.
Hmm.
um, and we got a surprising amount of like feedback and like positive energy from that, both like from showing it to Sean also got really excited, and then showing it online, a lot of
Hmm.
people were like, yeah, this sounds great. And then Sean and I had a call like that day or the day after, where we added to that original post with like more like basic ideas that we talked over. um Turn that to try to continue showing that tone and just seeing really early, like, is this something anybody would care about? And it turns out a lot of people I liked and who were around really
Hmm.
did care about it. So then we spent the next year working on it and released the Delta test. But I would say the bulk of the work on the project was about 2 or 3 months prior to the Delta test's release.
Hmm.
We had been building up little pieces all over, scattered across the whole project in that time. And then something around September, August or September or October, we really started cleaning it up, and then got an invitation from Tony at Plus One EXP to go do a game there
Hmm.
on the project, which we had started posting more about. So then we were like, we have to have something actually to show if we're going to do this.
Right.
And we had been playtesting at that point, but we brought that together, finished the Delta test in December of last year, or at the end of November of last year, and then went to PAX, showed it there. And then the time since then has been adding stuff to the design, finalizing what we want the big project to be, and then building the campaign, which was a huge
Hmm.
portion of the time.
Yeah, I would say that looking back, my emotional memory of this journey has been that we spent maybe a year, maybe even a year and a half playing together in a sandbox. And then at one point we turned to one another and we realized that we needed to live in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we had to like bring everything up to code and turn it into something that could withstand the tide.
That's exactly right. What's
Yeah.
funny is I remember very clearly the time right before we started working on Triangle Agency hardcore. I was having trouble like settling on my own projects because I had like books I wanted to write. I had this to do. I was doing a bunch of work that was not in the creative spaces that I wanted to be. So I built this schedule for myself that was like every day I will work on one of these projects. And I was like, okay, Sean, just so you know, like Mondays are my Triangle Agency day. Tuesdays I'm working on this one novel. Wednesdays I'm working on my next middle grade book. And then immediately, week one, I started working on Triangle Agency on Monday. I got so into working on it that it smashed the rest of my schedule before I ever did any of the rest of it. And then that is really what it was like. Oh, I made a schedule and then I was able to break it by working on Triangle Agency a lot. And then we just kept going past that.
I think that's one of the things that there's a couple things you point out that I really liked where the comical humor is definitely something that other versions don't, or like other, not versions, but games don't have. Because there's definitely been, like, in researching the Triangle Agency, obviously when everyone has their opinion, they're like, oh, it's like Delta Green, or it's like Control, or whatever. It's like, no, have you actually read it?
That's very sweet of you to say, and you've given both of us like a bright shining evening as a result of you saying that. Thank you.
Because like on a mechanic side, I love, because I'm a fan of streamlined narrative games. Sure, I like a crunchy game from time to time, but like I don't want to do percentile rolls and factor out something to just drive a car. I want to just...
I can love that, but in general, I agree with you.
Yeah, when I'm sitting down for a one-shot, I don't want the prep for the game longer than the one-shot.
I wish I could convince myself not to do that.
Unless
that's something I don't think that's game specific.
Unless I'm the DM. At that point, then I'm like, yeah, I'll prep a fortnight before you even sit down at my table, so that we are ready.
My whole life is prep.
Yeah,
exactly.
But
I leave it all on the table.
But that's when, like, researching it, I also kind of went down a rabbit hole of curiosities while researching your Triangle Agency of
a mystery hole.
Yeah,
mystery hole.
Yeah, because the comical nature kind of draws you in. The tongue-in-cheek corporate. I work for a big corporation outside of this, so to make fun of the like, welcome to the Triangle Agency. And that's fun. I spent, as soon as I was done watching that, I made like a parody video that's going to be for this intro, like the intro for this one. That's similar. Yeah.
I'm so excited.
Oh boy.
It is in the Discord under video things. So you are free to watch it.
We hope that you are enjoying this interview with our directors as we distract you from the impending doom that comes for us all.
A never-ending paranormal torment of anomalies, free from the chains that feed of the masses in.
Remember, if you are enjoying the interview, make sure to click your mandatory like and subscribe button below this video in order to let our corporate directors know you enjoyed your visit.
If you don't see anomalies, will starve and seek out new viewers to torment and feed an endless cycle of shorts that will slowly turn their brains to mush, with AI technology taking away all cognitive and independent thoughts until your brains are soft and mushy for easy digestion.
Thank you for watching. Now back to your mandatory interview.
It's been so exciting, the stuff that you're talking about, the kind of playing we're doing with the comedy, but also the storytelling in the rulebook and in the trailer and stuff
Uh-oh.
Oh no.
like that. It's been really fun seeing already in the stuff that's being made by players.
Yeah.
Oh no.
You paused for a moment.
I was gonna say, it's been real fun seeing the stuff that's already been made by players. That same willingness to play that you're describing, the like willingness to join in and like participate in that, because it has been so fun to do and something that we love doing, the voices and the the method of getting the rules across, but then seeing other people also really connecting with it as like a format and a way to play in the tabletop rule space has been super exciting for me.
Yeah.
Do you two ever think about that? Like, this game came out at a really good time, or like the concept and game came out at a really good time post pandemic, where people are working from home. They have to deal with the like, watch these corporate videos for 4 hours before working remote. That after that, like, people can technically go back into work, but there's still lots of remote work, lots of corporate tentacles seeping into people's homes. Like, I work remote, and they're like, "What are you doing with your free time?" Working, I swear.
I mean, I wish that any of that has been deliberate.
Yeah.
But I think,
Yeah.
you know, there's never been a better time to make a critique of capitalism.
It only gets a better time every day.
It only becomes more relevant.
Yeah. I honestly, obviously, like, I mean, it would be impossible to argue with you and say that it's not a good time, because obviously we've been really lucky, and what's happening to us right now is a sign that it's happening at the correct time for this thing to be coming out, that it's resonating with people. But I do think that part of what we found so fun about making it, and continue to find really fun about making it and planning it and playing in the space, is that, like, it is just something we've all been dealing with for way too long. Like, the stress of having to every day follow a series of arbitrary rules that people are laying out for you that absolutely don't have your best interests in mind, or maybe have not even thought of you, like maybe haven't even considered you, such that the way that you are living your life is still in control over those rules and those choices made by people that you will never see and who will never know your name. And that feeling is terrible in many ways, but it's also like a lot of art that I love. I want it to put me right up against that terrible feeling, and then give me the tools to like play with it, to make it bigger or smaller than it is, to destroy it or reinforce it, and know that I'm like getting to play with those choices rather than actually make them in a way that could, you know, ruin my life or make it way better, but I'm not sure yet.
Yeah.
So I think you're right about it being a good time. I think that isn't really something we thought about in that way. We weren't like, and now finally this is the moment for us to do this.
We're gonna hold on to it for 10 years.
This was actually all done 10 years ago. But we were
Right.
really
Yeah.
just
We've
about-
been waiting for the world to get bad enough that our commentary would matter.
Yeah, these kids won't get it.
They won't get
Not
it.
yet. At what point do you like it? I've made a lot of different projects, but I've never really taken them to Kickstarter. At what point do you sit down and like, it's finally ready? Like, it's ready to promote? Because that seems like the biggest, like, people stop themselves all the time. Or I see comments where they're just like, no, it's not ready. No, I don't have the video yet. It needs another round of editing.
I
think
am the
we've
wrong
already-
person to ask.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've already talked about how this project began with
Yeah.
a marketing push.
With promotion and like a logo prior to anything
Yeah.
being made. But it was not like, it didn't come with a date. Like, we weren't committing to time yet. And it was another year after that before anybody saw anything from the game for real. I genuinely think, though, as bad of advice as maybe it is, I do think that like, if you are like me, then the way that you will get something done is to make a commitment. But the important part of that is like to be smart about what those commitments are, and to like be smart about what you're actually going to be able to handle. At that point, like I was already pretty sure like that I could make a tabletop game, because I had been working as a general manager. Gosh, my brain has been melted by my own game. I've been working as a GM for like professionally for so long, and I am always 100% like working out of like worlds and that I'm making up myself, mechanics that I'm developing on my own. My like professional games became like a play place for me to throw new tools that I threw together in a couple hours at, and see how people reacted to them and what they were looking for and what they liked. And Sean and I had so much time of like sitting and talking to each other. We worked at effectively like a tabletop daycare, and the like And a huge length of that time, of our time together, was like waiting to pick up the kids from school to take them to the after school program. So the two of us had so much time to just talk about what we were doing, what we liked about the games we were playing, how we could make them more interesting. And so by the time we were announcing it, it wasn't really a question of like, is this possible? There was definitely a question of whether it would be good, but I knew that we could do it if we wanted to. And so, and for me, getting people to tell me like, oh, I really would want that is like how I get it done. So I could not have finished it without promoting it immediately.
Right.
But I don't know that that's true for everyone.
I think the two of us are the wrong person to ask that question for the opposite reason. Because as we already covered, Caleb and me, like my natural inclination would be to never utter a single word about what I'm working on until it is perfect. And so in between the two of us, we find what apparently has been a working formula.
Right.
Because this has been both of your first. This is your first Kickstarter that you've done.
Yes. Not Sean's first Kickstarter, but first game.
This is
first.
I did one Kickstarter that was asking for $1,200, and then I did another Kickstarter that was asking for $20 million.
Okay, what was the first one? And then the second one, but the first one.
The first one was for my sketch comedy group.
Okay.
This was right out of college. Kickstarter was just happening, and so like people didn't really understand the rules of it. And I remember like begging my family for money, begging everybody I knew for money, and then I spoke at one point after it was funded. I spoke to a very wealthy friend of mine's mother, and I was like, I'm feeling great. We just hit our funding. And she was like, how much were you asked? How much did you need? I was like, $1,200. It's me feeling super accomplished in the back of a cab. And she turns to me and she says, well, why didn't you just ask us for the money?
Right.
Cursed. That's a
cursed
cursed
head.
Yeah.
Yes.
Cursed moment. But I'm proud of you for raising the money.
Thank you so much.
And
yes, I'm also proud of
What was the second one?
The second one was some friends and I were watching season 5 of Game of Thrones and decided that we wanted to make our own sort of riff. The idea was we were going to fix the Dorne plotline in season 5 of Game of Thrones. And so for $20 million, we would match HBO's production quality and reshoot all of the Dornish storylines such that you could watch an episode and then pause whenever Dorne came up, watch our thing instead, and then resume.
It's such a shame that you and your group of professional filmmaking friends didn't get handed $20 million to do this.
I know.
You should have asked your friends' parents, like that whole group.
You didn't learn. You had the possibility right in front of you.
Well,
and on this one again. Oh man,
yeah.
Caleb,
you did not ask. Go send that message right now. Hey, you remember when you told me?
But there's still time.
With those two and going to this one, what is like the biggest thing you've learned doing a Kickstarter, either from those or this one? Because this one's has ballooned in stretch goals.
What's the biggest one I've learned between those two and this one?
Yeah.
I mean, it is really comparing apples and oranges.
Right.
Like one of them I cared about earnestly and deeply, and I was a child and I didn't understand anything about myself or the world. And
and one was a bit.
And one was a bit that we took extremely too far.
Yeah.
But like that one was also some of the best press that I've ever gotten. We were written up in like the Atlantic, and we were all over the place because people thought the bit was funny. But here, this project is something that I, am so passionate about. And I have the great fortune to be able to speak with other people who are passionate about it and to work, directly with Caleb and also with the amazing team of other people who've become part of the project.
Yeah.
It's there simply is no comparison. And as for what I've learned, the answer is probably nothing because I'm not very introspective.
Yeah.
I know it's really hard to talk about. It's really hard to talk about what we've learned right now.
Right.
I've been saying this a couple times because we've already gotten a few questions about like advice, like what would you do?
Yeah.
And to be honest, like it's hard for me to do that because we really do have one one point of reference, and for this one we did everything we could. So there's
Right.
like a million variables in here of things that we put a bunch of energy into, and I could not tell you even now
Right.
what the most important one is, or if it was just like a magic combination of everything. But I do think the closest thing I have to something that I've learned is like it all does matter.
Right.
like,
Right. Yeah.
like if you're ever sitting and you're making a plan and you're like, well, do I have to make this part good? The answer is probably yes.
Yeah.
Like if you want it to go good, you probably do, because even now, like even things are going really well, stuff we spent a lot of time planning, there's still stuff that comes up that was like stuff that we didn't know how to do exactly right, or things that we had to put less energy in because we were devoting it, and that stuff still comes up in a way that's sometimes kind of frustrating. Like, even after all of this, there are still things that we didn't do as well as we could have, and that's always going to be there. So like my position for a while on working on this, and like I think is not always a healthy one, but is worth thinking through, is that like when it comes to a project like this, as long as you're able to put in the time and you have the health and the money and the time to do it, like no energy is going to be wasted. And thinking about your project in terms of like wasted energy, or about something not being the right way to the right place to work or to put your time, is almost always just like the wrong way to be approaching it altogether. You should be able to, if you can, to find a way to make every part of it, the marketing, the development, the visuals, the text, the people you're working with, you should care enough about all of it to be able to find fun in all of those pieces, I think. And that's the closest thing I have to something that I've learned.
Because originally the project was just you two, correct? And then you started gaining more contributors. I don't know if you want to call them employees, but like contributors to...
Definitely not
to
employees, yeah. But Haunted Table doesn't even really have employees right now, except in the contract sense, which is like how a lot of this stuff works. But it started with just the two of us for a long time, and then for the Delta test we wanted to have some art for it, so we commissioned both Nathan Rhodes, who had this really great style that we saw online. That's the figures with the triangle heads that you see in stuff, and then also Ryan Kingdom, who's been a friend of mine for a very long time and who just has an incredible design sense and is good at everything. So it was a very easy choice. We also brought him on to do some other of our like early art, not just for the Delta test itself only has Nathan Rhodes's work in it, but then we had Ryan do some promotional art around that. And then when we realized how much we wanted to do, we asked Ryan to take over as art director, worked with Ryan to pick our team, and then Ryan gave notes on the artists. And right now everything has been super, super collaborative. We have our separate roles, but we all have been like working on everything. And a lot of our big team, who I'm so excited to work with, like our Vault writers, haven't written their missions yet, and so like we are right at the beginning of like our collaboration with a lot of these people, and I'm so psyched about it.
Because with this, your Kickstarter is actually going to be ending soon, correct? Here at the first week in July.
From today.
Yeah.
1 week. We're almost there.
Do you already have, because of how well it's doing, do you already have ideas for when it's done? Like either stretch goals that you haven't presented?
I keep hearing about sleep.
Oh, yeah.
No, you're not allowed to sleep. You have to produce so that we can consume, and then you equals happy. Maybe no.
I think we have honestly put everything on the table and then some. Our very first like 99K stretch goal, the like big final stretch goal of our first set, was about talking about what we hope our next project will be. So I definitely recommend checking that out if anybody's interested in seeing that. It is a game we would like to make to follow this one up, that is a sort of companion called 3 Weeks Notice. And then we have a bunch of other stuff that we've added, but most of which is about spreading the work across our team to make sure that our original timeline stays like basically the same. Sean and I are still finishing the design on the main game. We have actually taken some stuff that was going to be big amounts of work for us specifically, and have found people to help us with them, like having Will Jobst to come on to do the editing of the vault, and having Ben Mansky come on to do the layout of the books. Both things that we were just going to handle, but now with that out of the way, we're able to focus more on kind of the future, on the other details around Triangle Agency. And then now our third set of stretch goals, a big thing about those is that a bunch of really, really amazing game creators who are in the space and who have been working with us and talking to us throughout our development process are letting us give their games to our backers as well, and are creating or have created modules in the world of Triangle Agency that are also playable in their systems, allowing for us to sort of tie Triangle Agency into these other worlds and sort of show everybody, some of whom I know are like finding out about a lot of these games for the first time through our Kickstarter, because we've been really like given the gift of a lot of like traction and coverage on Kickstarter and in places like that. Finally able to show them some of the people that are already doing some of the things we love about our game in some cool ways, and are also approaching the same space from different tones, different mechanics. And that's going to be great. And then our very last thing, you know, about what's coming next is that we are working with Alfred Valley, who is an incredible, brilliant designer, on a solo RPG that you'll be able to play separate from the core rule set of Triangle Agency. That's currently called Triangle Agency Architect, but check back in a year and we'll see if that's still the name.
What has been the hardest thing to like have someone else do? Because again, to build off of like you're bringing in other people, what's been the hardest thing to like give to someone else to like do layout or do the art or
You mean like emotionally, or like what was
could be emotionally, or just like sometimes when I do a project, it's not necessarily emotion, it's just like I'll put a lot of effort into something and be like, I'm going to give it away, I'm fine with that, and then they do it and it's better. or different. Just different.
I mean, I think that everybody who has touched this project has made it better.
Yeah.
There's nobody that we've ever even talked to that I've been nervous about or that I've, you know, doubted their abilities. I think the things that are hard because like of a lack of experience on either of our parts, and so we're like uncertain about maybe the vocabulary or just like the effort required to accomplish what we're trying to ask. For me, the video comes to mind, just because it's such a multimedia extravaganza. And while I have a video production background, I have nothing resembling the experience with the masterpiece that Shannon put out.
Yeah, Shannon Strucci did an amazing job on the trailer and was extremely nice to us in terms of time and willingness for exactly what you're saying about what's difficult to pass off to people, like willingness to let us really keep asking for things to like really perfect it in a way that she did not have to do, but that led to, I think, something that we're all really proud of. Yeah, I would say it's a little hard to answer that question because a lot of the things that we're passing off to people are starting right now. Like we're in the earliest moments of passing off layout or passing off the editing and stuff like that. I think the thing that has been toughest for me to hand off is that even between Sean and I is that like I have a very I'm trying to think of like the nice and maybe like the nice or like mean way to say it about me, but the like is I have a very particular sense of voice, like narrative voice, like the way language is used, and there are certain parts of the way we talk in the rule book and like the way we build it that I can be so particular about and so obsessive about that it can be difficult for me to like let anybody else handle those parts. We have a really fun dynamic though where like I think if you look in the book and you're like looking at there's two like main voices in the book, like there is a very, very fun dynamic where Sean has a lot more and some very, very strong perspective because of his exposure to corporate language.
Right.
Like a very strong sense of how to approach it and how to build it in. And then I have this like much more like cavalier and like I don't know, like voicey, personal, like independent voicey kind of approach to things, which is like such a fiction writer term, but that when we are able to work together on something and like really approach it from those angles, it creates this really fun friction, I think, in the text.
That is, I'll underline that. It is very fun to write with you, Caleb. It's delightful. I love it. I've been thinking about it, and I have decided the thing that makes me the most scared or the most nervous to hand over, and it is basically every time somebody is playing the game without me, I'm like, ooh, I want in.
Right.
Ooh, I want to be there.
Yes.
And I know it's unfair and it's unreasonable and like it's the opposite of what I want, but
Right.
the FOMO is there every single time.
Yeah, there are podcasts of people who have played the game without us that like I have had to work myself up into listening to because I knew as soon as I listened to it, I was gonna be like, oh, I want to be in the room so bad.
Oh, yeah.
I want to be playing because that's why we made it. We like made it to be all the stuff we like.
Yeah.
But we've been so, yeah, it's been great. That's a really good one, Sean. You're right. No one else is allowed to play. No take, only throw.
Yeah, I because I downloaded the Delta version and I've been reading as much as I can. I'm so like it's on my list of projects.
You haven't played it, have you?
Not yet.
Okay, good.
No,
Okay, good.
not yet.
Setting my sword down.
Just reading through it because I also want to wait for like the Kickstarter to come out and do a couple other things. Plus I have a bunch of projects I want to do before doing it, but it fits into this like just fun story I like to make every once in a while, which is Pacific Northwest Bigfoot hunters. You know, it is the Gravity Falls kind of version where it fits right in because again, reading through it, there's the humor to it. It doesn't take itself. I mean, there is an aspect of being serious. You're a corporate entity doing something, but at no point is it, well, if we don't do this, the whole world is gonna
Well, not yet.
explode unless you
Not yet.
fail a lot. Because
World exploding. I just don't want to say that it's off the table.
it's somewhere on this like liminal space of a table. Yeah. Because the other aspect of it that I thought it's really interesting is you have chaos points, right? That you add into the gameplay, where based on how the players roll for their abilities and doing things, I forget if you title it GM or DM, but basically the storyteller,
GM, general manager.
Yeah. Gets points that they can then use through later in the game.
Yeah. Yes.
How? Yeah. How? What is your perception when creating the GM as that player too? Because there's a lot of systems where the GM is just I decide the rules versus being a player at the table.
Yes. I think the way that we approach that comes down to a thing that I believe. I don't know if we've confidently say we both believe this, but a thing that I believe about games. I'm pretty sure Sean's on board with me on this because we made a whole game about it.
We'll find out.
Is that a GM or a DM is always bringing a perspective to the game. Like there is no time that you're prepping for a game where you aren't putting yourself into it, and where the things, even all the way down to the game you choose to play, but then once you've chosen a game, the things you put your players through, the kinds of stories you tell, the ways you set up that story to potentially end, all of that is stuff that you as a GM are choosing. And like even the best, most computer brained GM who has the most like perfect simulation of a real fantasy world in their head and is like just moving the grains of sand around one at a time, even that person is still, no matter how much of that simulating they do, is still like relying on a set of beliefs and understandings of the world that they're really in to influence that fantasy world. And when we talked about how to give advice to GMs and how to build a game for GMs that's going to be fun for them as well as the players, and is going to make prep a little bit easier, and is going to make the act of playing feel a little more like you as a GM are also interfacing with a game, we wanted to make sure that we were open and honest with the people playing, that we expect them to be doing that. We want them to be approaching our game with a perspective. We want them to be making choices about the kinds of things our game is trying to say, and whether they want to say that too, or whether they want to use our game to say something different. We just want to make sure that anybody who plays is doing that on purpose and knows that they're doing that.
Yes.
Yeah.
For me, a lot of when I think about just the act of role playing, a lot of my background is in the theater, and a role-playing game is just a theatrical production that you put on in your house with your friends. And the game master is, like among many other, they're very often the producer, the writer, the director, and most of the cast. And fully agreed about the fact that that person has a very strong perspective, and it will underpin every action that happens over the course of a game. But to Caleb's point, something that's been valuable to me is thinking about ways to, like, when I think of myself in that role, the relationship system that we have in the game is a way to make it more fun and more interactive, so that the GM is not always responsible for every scene, that they can sometimes just have the pleasure of enjoying two other players like embody a scene, and that they're invited to let that happen. They're not obligated to make it happen, but that was my whole point.
Yeah.
No, I think I was actually going to say that's a really important piece of it too. The things that we talk about in the general manager's toolkit are not just about you having a perspective. It's about understanding that you have a goal with that perspective at the table. Like you're sharing it with people in the hopes that what you're trying to communicate gets across to them. And so it's important to be thinking about the game in that way too. Just like you're talking about with the relationships, about understanding that the people you're performing for when you are doing your GM side, and the people you're crafting for, are your audience in that way, but they're also the people you're like negotiating with. You're trying to get them on the same page as you. And our game tries to put some walls in the way to make it fun. Like that you can't do this, and this, that will make it really easy for them to be on the same page as you. But that we want the story to be about the act of everybody getting on a page, the same page, or at least understanding what they're deciding to do as characters, and then hopefully moving forward in their lives as well.
Yeah.
if it's really strong and if it goes really well.
Yeah, you said you had an hour, so I want to respect your time limitations. I cut out all the immersive play space questions and some game development questions. But do you have on your calendars rest time? And if so, how far in the future is that?
Oh gosh. No. I as soon as the campaign is over, I've joked about this on Twitter, but as the campaign is over, I have a book, a like publishing book deadline due for something else. So I have to do that in like 2 weeks, and then immediately following that, we dive into finishing our design so that we can have it ready for layout in the next couple months, so we can get done in time. And all of that is planned out, and I think we're going to be fine. But it's definitely a lot of work, and having this much response and this many people get so excited only makes that feel more important. Only hitting that time and staying on top of it. So
yeah, I think the rest time only factors in when the last person who backed has received their book.
Right.
When we finally exhale.
Yeah, I mean we're gonna go to Gen Con, and we don't have anything planned for that, so that'll be fun. That'll be a nice.
That'll be its own, a different kind of hectic, but hopefully a more rejuvenating hectic.
How do you plan, or how do you keep yourself centered while all of this is going on? Like, how are you taking care of yourselves during this Kickstarter and explosion of?
I want to answer you in a really good way, and I just don't have. I am doing it all day. I'm doing it all day. I've been playing Final Fantasy 16
Mhm.
So I would put that high on the list of ways that I am staying put together.
Yeah.
Where I do try to spend a couple hours every night doing something else.
You've got a dog that makes you go outside.
That's true. I go outside a couple times a day. Thank you, dog. And I yeah. I think, to be honest, I don't really want to be super relaxing at the second, but I do hope it comes. I
Right.
do want to be relaxing soon. And we have been I'm excited because in December-ish is when Sean and I, most of our like biggest lifts are kind of done, and on actually like finishing the project, like the things that really have to get done that aren't quite done yet on our end, like have to be done by then. And that is the like moment after which it's like, okay, now we're just doing business stuff. Like
Right.
there's still high
And then
stakes.
it's time to file taxes.
Right. There's still work to do, but it's not like the kind of all, like I was talking about earlier, the all-encompassing like endless amount of energy work. It's like a series of tasks that have an ending, you know, a series of things to do that we can do and then be done for a little while. So that's the answer, I guess. That's when we will rest.
There's yeah, you'll once it's all done and you're done filing your taxes, I'm sure someone might make a tax audit version of your game where they just
I thought you were about to say
No.
you were gonna get audited.
No,
I
you
was
won't get
like,
audited.
Don't wish that on me.
It'll be like a triangle agency, but like the audit department that is being like,
Yes.
why are there so many briefcases going missing? Like, we need to wrangle these in.
Yeah, I would not be surprised if one of our vault missions does not end up being taxes related. Based on the pitches I've been getting in, I would not be surprised.
Related to accounting.
Yeah.
Again, with that, like I said, I want to honor your time, so I can cut it there because you said you had an hour, and it's been just a little shy of it.
Yeah. If
Well,
you
it's
have
been
any
a
more,
really
we're happy to.
wonderful, a little
Yeah.
shy of an hour.
Yeah.
My voice is failing though, so it's probably good timing.
Yeah. The only other things I had was if you had seen, or let me get the
Sean.
what your opinions and critiques are on Omega Mart, if you've heard of it.
Oh my god. Okay, so
No spoilers.
yeah, we haven't been, but like literally like a dream of mine that is in the back of my head that I am working on the plan for is I want us to take a team like road trip across the Meow Wolf pieces because they're not all next to each other, but like they're all very close to our art director Ryan, and they are like a reasonable single day's road trip between each one. So there's an idea percolating of us driving through the desert and going to all the Meow Wolves sometime next year. That would be amazing. So I can give you maybe a better answer once we get that done. But gosh, how I want to go so bad. You do not know how much I love that stuff. I want to go so bad.
Yeah, I've been simmering. I've been seething. A friend of mine actually worked with them on one of
wow.
their projects, and I've just been like,
Do you know any
Hire us,
secrets?
Meow Wolf. Hire us.
Do you have any secrets from your friend about Meow Wolf, or
I'm not going to blow up anybody's spot like that.
I have to
The
ask.
secret
though.
is that I want to go very badly.
I must go.
Yeah.
And to do that, I'm not going to divulge any trade secrets.
Well, I'll have to just do what I do with everyone. Whenever someone says, "Oh, hey, this is something I really like," I'm like, "Okay, I'll just spam them for you. That's fine." So now it's just Meow Wolf. Be like, "Hey, Meow Wolf, have you?"
Don't get Meow Wolf mad at us.
I don't think I'll get him mad, but it just like 5 messages at various times of just like, "Hey, check this out."
If they want to make a Triangle Agency pop-up office, listen, we're here. The rights are inexpensive.
Yeah.
Or if they need an Omega Mart tabletop role-playing game.
Right. This is what I'm saying. Omega Mart, give us a call. Meow Wolf, we're here.
Thank you for watching your mandatory company interview of head directors and the director Gravity Fail.
Remember to share this video with other humans so we can spread the phenomenon to more people. Click that share button and spread the contagion.
Make sure to like, follow, and subscribe to this channel and all things Triangle Agency. Support the Kickstarter so we can build a regional office in your sector.
Yes, Thank you for watching. Bye.